Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast here on Toned In Entertainment. Today, we're taking a trip back to 2007 and along for the ride. Once again, joining me is Tyler Peters. How you doing, Tyler?
Tony, I am doing tremendous, and I cannot wait to talk about our topic. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the topic at hand is none other than Wrestling Society X, which aired back in 2007 on MTV. Now, originally, they filmed 10 episodes, but only 9 actually made it to air because, for many reasons, I think we'll come to a conclusion after doing this podcast here. The 10th episode never saw the light of day, and I think for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, it could be a number of factors, like you just mentioned. We'll get into it. But I will tell you, it was entertaining, yet a little confusing at the same time. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because when you kind of boot it all up, you're like, wow, I recognize a lot of these people. A lot of these people were either getting their start or had gone through the WCW, WWE ringer and kind of, maybe didn't fit in at that time. You had guys like Sean Waltman and you had New Jack and Vampiro that were, did big stuff in WWE and WCW at the time. And then you had a lot of guys that we know today, like Seth Rollins is on the show and Scorpio Sky from AEW. So it's really interesting to see these like new up and comers at the time in 2007 with some old veterans as well.
Yeah, there was definitely a great mix of the more experienced wrestlers with the new up and coming talent. And who would have predicted their futures? You've mentioned that Seth Rollins, who is currently the world champion for WWE, and he had a career in Ring of Honor. So a lot of variety with this promotion, Wrestling Society X. So I can't wait to jump into it a little bit.
You know what? Wrestling Society X was trying to, market to people that maybe weren't too enthralled at the time in 2007 with WWE or TNA. I mean, that's all that we really had back then. And a lot of wrestling fans were looking for something, maybe that old ECW style or WCW. And it was really trying to fit a niche market. I remember when it first came on TV, I was pumped for it. I was excited. I'm like, yes, this is something fresh. This is something new. And then the product airs on TV and you're like, yeah.
A little disappointed once you get to see it.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the editing for TV. Like it feels like, I think it pretty much is. It's just a bunch of highlights. There's no real ring psychology for the most part. There might be 1 or 2 matches, but it's just essentially a bunch of like, if I took a bunch of highlights and just edit them all together and put it on TV in like 4 minutes, that's kind of what you got with these matches.
No, I had to concur. It was a lot of up-tempo regarding the wrestling, and that was the only problem. There was not the psychology. You got to slow it down in some segments, and unfortunately, it was like you said, it was for a certain audience. And unfortunately, I wanted it to do good. As going back watching this, not that I was around like you were to view it when it first debuted on MTV, and I get it, the partnership with a network that is featuring music. However, there's still some wrestling fundamentals that every wrestling fan still appreciates, and that was the only downfall I think that they were up against when mentioning Wrestling Society X.
You could tell the network had a lot of hands in this production, and I do give them credit. One, for being original and taking a chance and trying to do something different. We all have to applaud that. In my opinion, my personal opinion, I feel like what the creators of this show wanted wasn't necessarily what was broadcasted on TV. It felt like MTV, again, in my opinion, had way too many hands in their cookie jar when it came to Wrestling Society X.
Yeah, to your point, it wasn't wrestling people. It was more entertainment music personalities, which, hey, we all love the versatility Don't get me wrong, but you need some people who know professional wrestling. And you could see it. There was too much cross-pollination between the MTV brand and this brand of Wrestling Society X. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed seeing Pitbull, 3-6 Mafia, Good Charlotte. I'm not sure they belonged here, but I get the pairing because it's on MTV. And for me, that was kind of neat, but it just didn't fit. There was just some ingredients missing, like a good dinner. If you don't have the right ingredients, it's not going to taste as good.
Oh, that's very well. What a great analogy. I like that one. But
well, thank you.
Yeah. As you can see, I mean, when Styles P was on there, episode 9, I thought he was pretty good. But when Pitbull was on there, as much I've met Pitbull, he's awesome. But he really didn't fit in on that show. I mean, the commentary, he seemed kind of not
Lost.
either interested or lost. Yeah, with his commentary.
Yeah. I mean, they were just up there saying, "Oh yeah, I like wrestling. I remember the Undertaker match or something," which was cool, but it had nothing to do with what was on the screen. So I get it; they were trying something new, but you still have to follow the story in the ring and what's going on backstage and the vignettes. But I will say this about the broadcasters: I enjoyed their commentary. I actually did. That's one of the positives that I wrote down. Chris Kloss, I believe is how you say it, and Brent Ernst. Gave it definitely the MTV vibe, but you could tell Kloss especially knew wrestling. I mean, so I can appreciate them for trying it. He just stood out. I will say it. I like the commentary, believe it or not, even though it wasn't from a traditional point of view. That may catch people by surprise hearing me say that.
Yeah, I thought the commentary was good, but yeah, the musical guest definitely really took you out of that atmosphere.
I feel like, how you have a filler match. That's all they were doing. It's like, okay, it's MTV. Let's get Pitbull up here. Even like you said, you respect these artists. Why are they up there? I guess it's the exposure, but it takes away from the product a little bit. I mean, I know people are going to harp on, well, WrestleMania features celebrities, but yeah, that's only once a year, and they're the WWE. Let's be honest. So if you're starting to be an alternative, you've got to really watch how you present your show. And commentary is very important because they're storytellers too. So you got to be very careful just inviting everybody going, oh, yeah, I remember that match with Sting. And what are we watching here? As much as I like Sting or Ric Flair, what are we talking about? There's action going on inside the ring.
Yeah, it shows why the greats like Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Michael Cole really stand the test of time. And that's why a lot of guys are brought in sometimes for one match, but these guys were brought in for the show. And it really it showed after, just a couple sentences sometimes with these guys. It really showed they had no idea what they were talking about.
I started getting fatigued for them, and they weren't even having to move on commentary, but some of the guests, it was tough to watch.
Well, speaking of commentators, I think one of the things that people will remember from Wrestling Society X, even above the wrestlers, they may not even remember the name, but it's the ring announcer, right? Fabian Kaline, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And man, every single time, I think he had 12 Monster Energy drinks before he went out there and was announcing every single match.
He had something, man. He's taking some kind of recreational drugs. I'm not sure, but he was amped, man. I got to hand it to him. He brought some energy. I got to give him some credit if you're going to grade him. It was definitely unique, this whole presentation. Yeah, and Fabian, at a couple of episodes, he started doing magic tricks, which I found odd, but he had like this wand. I thought it was David Copperfield for a minute, and it was Fabian, the ring announcer. I'm trying to be a little funny, but it's true if you watch it. But I will give him a lot of accolades. His voice, he brought a lot of enthusiasm to the product, which I felt like helped, even though it could be a little distracting at the same time.
The one thing that really drove me crazy with this product, and it drives me crazy with television, is like pumped in crowd noise when it doesn't match.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know exactly where I'm going with this, because from what I'm to understand is they taped a bunch of episodes like early in the morning. They probably taped 5 episodes and then another 5 and then they're done. And it was free entry for the crowd. And they actually paid good looking guys and girls to come in and be in the front rows and front and center so the camera could shoot them.
Yeah, you could tell.
But you could tell the entire time that there's nothing going on in the match sometimes, or there's nothing that really registers. And it's just this constant, yeah. And it's nobody's cheering and nobody's doing nothing. Yeah. The reactions of the people are silent, but the crowd noise just keeps on going. And it's just something that absolutely drove me crazy watching this.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It reminds you of those old sitcoms where it was like a clap or laugh track. It wasn't like a live audience that you felt the actual noise. It was, you could tell it was all manufactured in, and that drove me crazy too.
Now, they obviously tried to set themselves different, which again I do appreciate, from the stage and trying to give it like an underground feel with the aesthetics. The crowd didn't feel like an underground crowd though. There was like models in the crowd and stuff. It wasn't like if we were going to go watch.
Feel, very underground to your point.
Yeah, it did feel like if we were going to, like, again, a secret society of wrestling, that the people that were in the crowd would actually be at this secret society of professional wrestling.
Yeah, they went look like they stepped out of a modeling agency. And all these pretty people. You would think you see a lot of sleaze bags and stuff. If it's going to feel underground, I mean, I know that sounds horrible, but just to be honest, if you're wanting to be different and stand out, you would think it would have like this bar feel. I mean, but grungier, than underground, like you're aforementioning.
I know MTV really wanted it to be different from, WWE, and at the time, WWE had their own, the reboot of ECW going on. And so some of their rules, as I'm to understand, was they didn't want stunts that could be performed at home. So you didn't see steel chair shots and stuff like that. But instead, you just got insane things like exploding coffins and somebody being dumped into a piranha tank. And then there was on the final episode, which actually never made air, which was on the DVD. And thankfully, a Good Samaritan has put this episode up on YouTube for us all to enjoy. But like, it was a time bomb match where the guy had to go up and like touch the activator. And whoever was in the ring, the whole thing was going to just blow up. So,
and how are we supposed to believe that people are not going to survive? I mean, there was people still in the ring while this thing blew up.
Now, I do want to give them some credit. Let's forget like all the crazy stuff that's just, it looks silly. Like, let's just be honest, especially here in 2024, a lot of it just looks silly, especially they added in special effects to it and everything in post-production with explosions and fireballs and everything else. But I do want to give them some credit with the backstage interviews. They kind of went a little bit old WCW style with a lot of them, where they tried to make it feel like the promos were real, like they would happen in the parking lot or in the backstage area. And you could tell that one backstage area, that poor thing just got beat up, because by the end of like the final episodes, there's like holes in the wall and everything that happened.
It was barely standing. I mean, it was taking a beating itself.
But I do appreciate them trying to have that bit of reality to their show. Like, it did give it a different, it didn't have, the neon lights and the setup so much in the background where it was like staged interviews, but it kind of felt like it was one person confronting another person for another reason. And I did enjoy that part.
Where anything could happen, the unexpected, where sometimes that's the only gripe with WWE and some of these promotions. It feels a little too overproduced. And I'm with you. I like the grittier presentation at times.
Well, here we go. Cherry Bomb says, I enjoyed the show. It was more of wrestling on steroids, but it was so different and refreshing, even though it was super old.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. She's correct.
Now, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was there were no women's matches in 10 episodes. It was all guys, and there was only 2 women, I think, featured at all, which was Lacey the interviewer, Lizzy Valentine, Lacey the interviewer, and Lizzy Valentine, who was with Matt Sydal. So
Correct.
No women matches at all in 10 episodes. What are your thoughts on that, Tyler?
It was a shame, but it may be due to who they could get. Because remember, TNA and WWE and all these other promotions may have already got all the talent in other independent organizations. So maybe it could have been that it was so driven by however many tag teams and singles they had, and women had to be valet, or at least the one with Lizzy Valentine and the lady that was backstage interviewing. So it was a shame. I felt like they could have got at least a couple though to mix it up, but you never know what they were going through financially and how they were starting this thing up. You have to kind of look at the business side of it too.
Or maybe no women wanted to sign up to be dunked in a piranha tank.
Well, I think that's fair. That's probably really what it was. Okay, you're wanting me to dunk my head in piranhas. You're wanting me to explode, get in this coffin that's supposed to be electrical. I mean, I'm sure that's a turnoff for a lot of women wanting to pursue professional wrestling or be involved.
They're like, no, it's okay. I'm going to wait till something else comes along. I don't need to be part of this chaos that's going on here.
Certainly.
Now, I think my favorite wrestler character in this entire series was Matt Classic, who was played by Boom Boom Colt Cabana. Okay. He was a wrestler that was frozen and then wakes up. I don't know if it was 40 years later or 60 years later. I forget the exact number.
I think it was like so many years where he finally woke up again. I mean, I think you're right on it.
Yeah, he was like defrosted and he wanted to wrestle in that like 1950s, 1960s style of wrestling in 2007. Now, for me, that was entertainment. That was a lot of fun. Seeing, a grappler, it felt like a video game character, like when you try to put a bunch of different personalities together, like he really felt like a video game character in Wrestling Society X.
Yeah, it was very retro. And I did not know that was Colt Cabana, who was Matt Classic.
It was.
I was wondering who betrayed him. That is very fascinating. I'll have to go back and watch Cabana's matches and kind of look for the mannerisms. Man, he did that very well. I mean, because he made you think he was this old school technical grappling wrestler, and I actually enjoyed Matt Classic. I thought with all the high flyers, you needed somebody that's going to bring a different style, just something that I can say, because you can get tired of the high flying after a while. It may be fun to watch for a little bit, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, Tony, you still got to have some of those in-ring fundamentals, and Matt Classic delivered.
Yeah, he was, I think, the sole provider of a lot of the technical wrestling, because everybody was trying to do those high spots, whether you had Jack Evans in there or, a bunch of the Teddy Hart was in there, who, of course, has gone through a lot of stuff.
The Human Tornado, yeah.
The Human Tornado, yeah, he was pretty cool. I liked him in there. Matt Sydal, all these guys were trying to show off their jumping skills. But over the course of this programming, they did crown a first ever Wrestling Society X champion, and that was Vampiro. But by, I believe it was the 9th episode, he did lose his title to Ricky Banderas. So if you go in the history books, I guess Ricky Banderas will forever be the Wrestling Society X undisputed heavyweight champion.
And it's neat to think about. Ricky Banderas, I was into him and Vampiro. I didn't think it'd be my cup of tea, and you'll have to help me out, Tony. Vampiro, the only exposure I had was when he feuded with Sting back in WCW. I think it was during the Vince Russo, Ed Ferrara era, or the New Blood.
Correct.
Circumstance. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it never clicked. You would think those two characters with Sting with the black and white, Vampiro having similar face paint and the size equaling out. Taking nothing away from Vampiro, I didn't realize his history prior to American wrestling, being Lucha Libre, AAA, and Ricky Banderas. So it was very intriguing to me that they brought and revisited this rivalry. And I thought it was cool. I was actually into this, believe it or not, because normally I kind of stay away from these kind of angles and stories, but they got me hooked. They did their jobs.
Yeah, I'm not too much of a Vampiro historian, but I think most of us do remember him from the WCW feud days with Sting. And I know, at least I believe, he had done stuff in Mexico, and he's done stuff kind of like in the underground, I believe. So it was nice to
Yeah,
kind of
Lucha
see.
Underground too. Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to see him as I mean, he kind of was like the main figure when you look at these posters. Is Vampiro, you got Sean Waltman and New Jack a lot of times, and Scorpio Sky. You see those guys kind of like front and center on the advertisements for Wrestling Society X.
What's amazing is watching Scorpio Sky, Matt Sydal, Rick Knox, who is now in AEW. I mean, you learn something new all the time going back reviewing these type of programs, and it's a lot of facts I didn't realize. I had to go back and do my homework on. But whether you liked it or not, it had a certain appeal. I mean, you couldn't look away. There was always something you wanted to go and say, hey, I want to check it out. Whether I think it's silly or a little dumb or not. I mean, wrestling's always kind of had some form of it anyways, but they kind of went too far on some things, but it was just an alternative. I mean, I viewed it not only could I see an ECW influence FMW in Japan with the explosions. I mean, you could see hinges of various influences when watching their product.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that, the network kind of sticks their fingers into these things, because I think had it been run by the people who created the show, I think it could have been something special. But just like WCW, with Turner in the early 2000s, the suits come in and they want to run the show. And it's like, let the creative people that you hired, the people who pitched the show, let these guys run their programming. And I think had they had more time with it, and maybe a lot of it did feel rushed because it was edited down to like 22-minute episodes, so it kind of was crash TV, but you never did get bored when watching these episodes.
No, you didn't. You were always entertained. I will say that about Wrestling Society X, and you brought up something very interesting, Tony. When the executives or people running a wrestling promotion, or at least over that promotion, are not fans of wrestling and don't understand it, that's normally recipes for disaster.
Yeah, as a wrestling fan, Tyler, if somebody asked you, hey, should I go watch Wrestling Society X, what would you say?
I would recommend it just because it is something fresh, even though it's not uh, my preference, is the wording I was looking for there. You still got to be fair and give it a look, because it may be for another fan. Maybe I don't like everything about it, but it doesn't mean another spectator is not going to enjoy it. So who am I to say don't watch it? I trust Tony, and I was kind of like, wow, he has turned me on to something a little odd here, but I cannot quit watching. You kind of get hooked, even if you're not into the first or two episodes. It's like any other show. You're like, okay, I want to watch the other one. I want to watch the next one. Then I'll take a break. I may come back either later that day or the next night, because you binge it. I mean, with only 9 episodes and 10 total with the unaired one. It doesn't take long. Like I said, it's crash TV. It's edited down. They had an extra show where it showed highlights of the big matches, but you would get bonus matches, which I never understood why they were not included on the main card, and forget the extra part. Just include it all in that half hour, or however they edited it down.
Well, at that time, you're talking the mid 2000s. I remember so many companies were trying to push their websites at the time, right? Before there was
Okay.
YouTube as prominent. So a lot of people, in order to get traffic to their website, would put this like bonus match on their website. So people would go, they'd see the advertisements, they would, get the clicks on their videos and stuff like that. So a lot of times those dark matches, I guess you can say, were to entice people to come to the website and watch their content directly on their website, which is something that just isn't done anymore here in 2024. But I'm pretty sure a lot of places were doing this online only stuff where you can only watch it on their website at the time.
Well, I'm glad you educated me because I would not have looked toward this type of perspective, and I'm glad you educated me because it makes a lot more sense now. I think with the bonus matchups, you kind of hated they were not featured with some of these other matches because I didn't mind one or two matches or even three, but it's a shame we didn't get more because it kind of made you want more, even if you were not crazy about how they were presenting themselves. It's kind of hard to explain, really.
Yeah, for me, I would definitely recommend somebody go and watch these episodes, but I think you have to have like a buyer beware warning when you go into something like this because of just the insanity of the stuff. Like it's entertaining, yes, and it just I think a lot of people now watching it here in 2024 when they see those cheesy edited effects into their wrestling might be a turnoff for people. So that's the hard part to grasp is the extra the phoniness that they threw into this stuff to make it seem like a Hollywood movie when really I just want my wrestling. And if you want to throw in some explosions, I mean, it was better than the Moxley exploding death match with Kenny Omega. So I have to give them some credit on that. But it's cheesy, it's Crash TV, it's interesting. I don't think you're going to get a lot of great technical wrestling moments. Like if you went back and watched the Great American Bash or some old WWE or AWA or Texas wrestling, it's definitely a product for its own time. It had its place in time and history. I think you just have to put a little asterisk, buyer beware. But there is some entertainment value to be found in Wrestling Society X.
There's plenty of entertainment to be discovered, but I wouldn't compare it to all the territories and a lot of your the technical wrestling. I wouldn't say, oh yeah, this Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, or Ric Flair, Steamboat. You're not gonna get this with the Wrestling Society X. To be fair to them, but I will say it takes a lot of bravery to step out of the shell and step out of the norm with anything. And I don't mind good movies, but yeah, don't mix it with my wrestling. I have to agree. Maybe I'm sounding like an old man here. I just some things just leave them alone.
Back in my days, Tyler, when we used to watch the matches down at the at the garden.
Where's my tobacco ad or something?
Well, for me, again, it was fun going down memory lane. I do remember when this first aired, and I remember watching the first couple episodes. And maybe in 2007, my attention span wasn't even there for Crash TV at that point. But I'm glad I went back and watched all 10 episodes. I did enjoy some stuff. Some stuff again just doesn't really hold up for me. But Matt Classic is definitely my standout here. What are some of your standouts for Wrestling Society X, and maybe what are some of your disappointments?
Dragon Gate impressed me. I really like this team. It's funny, we were kind of harping on our critiques of it not going so fast, but these guys delivered some scientific movements too that I enjoyed when you really paid attention. And I found it very compelling when this mysterious guy suddenly came in after so many episodes and was brainwashing them. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's kind of comical. Yet I understood what they were trying to do, reinvent them. And that part was a little bit out there, but I liked the team. You could tell the talent was there. And hey, I guess because we're from the South and they were from Florida, but we've got them in Tennessee, the Trailer Park Boys. With their uncle who was, I don't know if he was married into how that worked, but they could really go, but it's the character work too that was fascinating. I mean, those guys, I just love the vignettes and how the uncle was saying, listen, I can't stand how we're all, you're always stereotyping us. How we live in trailer parks. We're actually, there's more to offer and kind of paraphrasing the promos. And I'll tell you, another team that I thought was good was Chaos and Aguilera. I thought because he was into the women, I like kind of the backstory that you thought it was going to be dissension and eventually they came together. And that was one of the matches, and help me if I'm not correct here, Tony, where the Piranhas were in. I think they took on, I forget the name of the team now. Gosh, money. I had it written down, but That was some examples, anyways, of some of the other people that stood out. And I mean, what were yours? I mean, was there any others?
I mean, when you mentioned the brainwashing, I actually did like that storyline, which is kind of crazy because it's kind of so warped and out there where they're kidnapped and they're brainwashed, and it felt very, again, like late 90s. I mean, it is 2007, but I did like the brainwashing aspect of the storyline there, which I thought was really cool. Again, like
Kind of
I
had a
said,
sci-fi vibe to it.
yeah, it did. I think they were trying to, ECW was doing the whole on the Sci-Fi Channel, and they were on Tuesday nights, the same time as the WWE ECW. So that was another, I guess, struggle that they had with
True.
drawing an audience, was they were competing with, even though a lot of us weren't huge fans of that particular version of ECW, it was still a WWE product that had a built-in audience. So it's hard to compete against it. So they still had a lot of struggles to compete, but I like just the fact that they went for it. They didn't give a crap about, they were going to try to be themselves, at least the best of their ability. So I want to give them a lot of props on their originality. The disappointment is definitely the post-production work to this, and them trying to you could just feel like there's a guy in a suit back there watching the editor and saying, no. Add more flames to this, add this and add that to it. And I'm like, you don't need to add
it. Got hokey.
Yeah, it got hokey. And it's just some guy that thought, or a group of people that had their input in there where maybe it just wasn't necessarily needed. So for me,
this will be good for TV.
Right, exactly. This is what the people want. It's not necessarily, but.
And I forgot your other question, because I don't know, man. I'm forgetful anymore.
Oh, if you had any disappointments.
Any disappointments. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, there was quite a few. I didn't like how Vampiro didn't at least have the title a little more. That was one of them. I mean, I get it. You only lasted 9 episodes. It's kind of hard to argue the fact too much. Now, Ricky Banderas, normally I don't like all the blood coming out of the mouth and kind of the bizarro stuff. I mean, it was true to his character, but this coming from a guy that liked Gangrel, that's being pretty harsh. So I have to, be a little more relaxed and stuff with the whole blood stuff. I'm trying to think of some of the other competitors that, Jack Evans.
I was going to say Jack Evans. I did enjoy his character here, and he would come out and dancing and having a good time. It was a little bit of a kind of a little gangster, and it was kind of cool.
He was.
A lot of us were kind of introduced to him mainstream wise when he showed up on AEW with the Hybrid 2. He was there from the very beginning. So maybe a lot of us have seen Jack Evans since that point. I remember watching this, but it didn't resonate with me that was Jack Evans back in Wrestling Society X, but he was, extremely talented here in Wrestling Society X. And he was actually a lot of fun to watch as well.
Yeah, and the same for Scorpio Sky carrying out the awards. I mean,
that was funny. That was good.
Completely opposite. Yeah, but Jack Evans, he had moves, and so did the Human Tornado. I love the dance off. Believe it or not, that was comical when they had the dance off to end the show.
Yeah, I think the one thing was a shame. It looked like they were really trying to build towards something, because they were getting ready to introduce kind of like a X Division or cruiserweight-ish hybrid of a title, and they were teasing it, but of course the show got canceled and never aired. So it looked like they were ready to bring in something new for, a new division title that just never made it to air. And it's kind of a shame.
No, it really isn't. And even if they could have just lasted a couple more episodes or another season, to find out that new title. Fabian was announcing it, wasn't he, with the lady backstage? And forgive me if I can't remember her name. I watch it, but there's so much to try to retain. It's amazing how you start forgetting. I'm going to start quoting Michael McDonald. I keep forgetting.
Maybe it's just the Crash TV. It just overwhelms our brains.
I think I'm going to use that. It's overwhelming. And, but there was parts of it like anything, even with modern wrestling today, that I don't enjoy, that I come at it from more of the traditional perspective, but I know it's got to evolve. So I understand some of the high spots. It may not be my forte, but there's always room for it because wrestling's like anything, like movies, like television. It has to evolve. And I've learned to kind of not be so critical. And I'm just a fan. And why should I have too much of an opinion? I can understand the ones that have been in the business, then they've got more of a right. So I've tried to relax on kind of being too harsh on everything. And hey, listen, it's opened my eyes. I'm actually more positive with Wrestling Society X than I thought I would be, which is a miracle.
Oh, after that first episode, did you just think this was you're gonna be one and done with it, and you only kind of kept going from the review?
You know, I would say after a couple of episodes, there was some interest, but it was like, okay, let's pick it up. And they finally started to. You have to give the storyline some time to build and these matchups. I actually didn't mind the Rumble. It wasn't my favorite Rumble match. We just discussed Royal Rumble, not saying it was that. But you had Just Incredible. I mean, you had, like you mentioned, New Jack. You had Hamrick, Chris Hamrick, who was from Bristol. I grew up right down the road in the Tri-Cities. I think he did some with ECW. Vic Grimes was also here.
Yeah, Vic Grimes was in it. Yeah. Yeah, they try to, grab your attention. And they did a good job with that first episode with having, a big Rumble type ladder-ish match and to get the contracts and to fight for the WSX championship. And they had the right seeds, but I think, in my opinion, corporate just took over and Vince McMahon did and just crushed it in their hands. And
yeah, and I think it's like record companies. Sometimes you can draw the parallels. You got a great band or a great vocalist, and they're doing really well. They're getting hits, and even some of the other songs may not be hits, but you love them. You think sometimes they're better than the mainstream songs that made them so popular. And it's the same with wrestling in the entertainment business. Not with everybody, but a lot of times it's those executives that, unless they've got the product knowledge. I'm borrowing from good old JR. That's a great term. Let's shout out to his podcast. But it's just, that's true. I mean, they don't grasp what this is and what it should be. And it's a shame. And that's what's been the downfall of not just WCW, but, as
a lot of wrestling companies,
ECW, there's been a lot of examples, not just those two. That's the big two everybody talks about, but a lot. Yeah. Plethora.
Well, is there anything else you want to touch on with wrestling? I think I'm good with everything I wanted to cover with Wrestling Society X. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, Tyler?
The only other thing I want to cover is El Hombre was entertaining because they were explaining what that meant in Spanish, white guy with a mask. So I thought that was clever. I didn't mind the funny anecdotes. I mean, they were going for a certain audience too, so you have to gravitate toward on commentary. I like Keeping It Gangster. They were good. I enjoyed it. And of course, Tyler Black and Jimmy Jacobs. I think Jacobs is a producer for AEW.
He is. I did see that. Yeah, he did. He is. Yeah.
So think about. I think for me, think about the journeys of all this talent, whether it's AEW, WWE, or wherever. I mean, they may just be in some other part of entertainment, even outside of wrestling. I need to research a lot of these personalities, see what they're doing now. I thought, this may sound corny, I actually didn't mind the 6-pac Lizzy Valentine little angle, and then Matt Sydal acting like he was going to beat up 6-pac. Nothing against Sydal, but I'm like, 6-pac would probably take you. I think I believe him actually beating you up. But that's the part of wrestling that, it's to make you believe. And sometimes you look at it and go, okay, it's a bit much, but I'm entertained. So what do I know?
Well, Wrestling Society X, a little nugget in the vast world of professional wrestling history. Guys, if you haven't already, I would suggest there's an entire playlist. Somebody has put it up online. I know they sell the DVDs as well too, but somebody has been nice enough and organized a nice 10-episode playlist, including the episode that never made air, which includes the Piranha episode and the ticking time bomb of death steel cage explosion match as well too. I know that name is wrong, but if you guys have,
it doesn't matter. Yeah,
it doesn't matter, right? It's just complete chaos and insanity.
Trust me, when you watch it, you'll understand.
You will. And at 22 minutes, yes, Mosh Pit Messiah is saying Piranha episode. Yes, in the 10th episode, somebody gets dunked into a piranha tank, and they put like the 2x4s, a crate, like a pallet over top of them, and they have to count to 3 in order to get the victory.
And notice the ref had to count real fast because those piranhas would have got him. It would have been like piranha. Yeah.
See, now if that Bret Hart could have complained to Nick Patrick about a fast 3 count there.
He probably should have complained there. Imagine,
not the Nick Patrick 3 count, but that was an extremely fast 3 count. He's like, get the man out of there before he gets eaten alive by piranhas.
Even the announcers were doing a good job, like going over the top, like get him out. And it's probably just these regular fish out of a creek, but they named them piranha for the sake. Because give me a break. If it's really from the Amazon or something, you're getting them the heck out.
Like, I didn't see any bites on him. He wasn't there.
I noticed there was no flesh wounds on Chaos or Little Guapo or Chilo, however you say it. No offense, but whatever his name was, it was like that's the fun part about it. It's kind of a parody of itself.
It really is 100%. Oh man. So Wrestling Society X, an entertaining watch. I mean, I think a lot of people have very fond memories, right? We all have things in our memories from our childhood or our teenage years that we think were amazing. And when people say, "Oh, Wrestling Society X, I loved it. It was the best ever." And then you go back and watch it and you might be like, or you might have thought it was, and then you're kind of like, hey, this is actually kind of entertaining. For me, it fits that medium. It's goofy. It's funny. It's kind of chaotic. There's crazy wrestling moves. It's cheesy. Has a little bit of everything. Mosh Pit Messiah said he's definitely added it to his playlist tonight for the nostalgia effect. Go ahead and do that. You'll get through these episodes real quick. 22 minutes each episode.
Oh, you will
fly right through them. There's a lot of recapping in those bonus episodes afterwards. You could just kind of skip through because you just watch the episode. But you will catch, like you said, 1 or 2 dark matches in that bonus material as well.
Well, and hey, listen, like you were saying, Tony, you get some pretty good matchups and characters. It's just you got to get over some of the craziness though too that comes with it. It's got a nice balance and mix. I will put that spin on it. And hey, I'm glad you let me tune into Wrestling Society X. I don't know that I've ever heard of them. And I'm not saying that to be mean. There's a lot of these promotions that are for that niche audience that it's cool to go back and review and talk about.
Well, speaking of talking about, should we let people know who are going to be watching this on demand, what we have lined up in the future, Tyler?
Yeah, we definitely should let the people know what we're going to be discussing.
Okay, so we decided, after our Royal Rumble one, we want to come back and have some more fun. I really enjoyed our post show, and
I did too.
And we're gonna do an Elimination Chamber post show, but it's not going to be right after the show because it is taking place in Australia. A Saturday morning, I believe we said 4 a.m. my time, 3 a.m. your time, right? Yeah. So we're not.
It's like we're having to do this later.
Yeah, we're not going to cover it live, and it's also on a Saturday. I'm probably going to be busy with some shows that day, anyways. So we are going to do the WWE Elimination Chamber post show, but it'll probably be on Sunday, I think, maybe, or Monday. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll let you guys know.
Yeah, we'll get it scheduled, and but I'm looking forward to it, man. Elimination Chamber. Rhea Ripley gets to go back home in Perth, Australia. That's why the time difference, and God bless them. And the UK's getting their revenge, that fan base, because they're normally up late, and they're getting us back here in the States. We're like, no, we're going to have to watch it later. Some dedicated fans will get up and watch it. I'm dedicated, but not that much.
Let's see. Well, Cherry Bomb says Elimination Chamber, brunch and mimosas. It sounds like
sounds good.
It sounds like, yes, it sounds like a fantastic day. Any day you have brunch, mimosas, and professional wrestling, it always works for me. And
Mosh Pit
says, hoping for a discussion on Lucha Underground next, since you touched on Wrestling Society X. Mosh Pit, were you heavily invested in Lucha Underground? That's what I want to know. And while he's answering that question, Tyler, I'm going to tease the next theme that we have going on too, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay.
No, go for it, Tony.
Let me grab it. It's right here.
The anticipation grows, folks.
So what we have coming up soon, and I'm very excited about this, is that we're going to review Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling cartoon on DVD. Yes, from, goodness gracious, 1980 something. You can't find these episodes online, Tyler. There's like 3 or 4 floating around.
You were informing me of this, Tony, and I cannot wait to watch the DVD and check it out and for us to do a review on it. I've heard nothing but great things about the Hulk Hogan cartoon, and I was just going to say, what you going to do, brother, when we run wild on you with this DVD? It's going to be something to behold. It's going to be special. God bless me and Gene Okerlund. I wish we could just borrow him for just a little bit.
Well, Tyler, I'm kind of concerned because you said you heard a lot of good things, and I don't know if that's going to hold up to the promise.
I'm being optimistic. Okay. That's what I mean. I've not actually seen it, everybody. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just so darn excited and optimistic.
Okay, but that is going to come probably sometime in March because there's quite a few episodes, and as you guys can see, I have all the DVDs right here. I had to order it off eBay, but I'm going to watch this, and I have to send it to Tyler so he can watch it, and then we'll do the reviews. And with the Sting final match coming up in March, we're going to do this episode sometime in March. So that will be something I'm hoping to look forward to. We may have to say some prayers and take our vitamins to get through this.
We may have to, Tony. And hey, listen, we got through Wrestling Society X. There's only up from here.
I'm glad you said there's only up from here.
No offense. There was some good stuff, to be serious, but we're poking fun at ourselves too a little bit here. So
yeah, absolutely. Moshpit says he watched it. Yes. Does he remember it? No. But it was the first time he remembers watching Brian Cage and Puma wrestle. I think there's something to dig into. Maybe that could be like an April themed show as well too. Maybe that's something we can work on. I believe there's a lot of content for Lucha Underground, so that may take a while. So we'll look into that. We'll definitely look into that. We love coming up with these themed episodes, so that could be definitely something down the line. Do. And I've heard nothing but good things. Well, I should say a lot of good things about Lucha Underground. I don't want to say nothing but good things, but a lot of good things.
Now you're making my mistake where I haven't watched it, but there's a lot of good things.
Right? Yeah.
Sounds like a bad promo.
It does. Well, Tyler, thank you for joining me here. And thank you for making it through all 10 episodes of Wrestling Society.
Oh, no problem. You're very welcome. Hey, listen, there was something I found entertaining about it, even if I didn't enjoy every episode. It definitely grabs you. It hooked you, as I think the Briscoes would tell you. But, Tony, it's always a blast, man. Thank you so much for having me in all sincerity. Yeah,
Tyler, what cool stuff do you have coming up?
Hey, just released a new episode on SJP World Media of Tyler's Takedowns featuring Bad Blood in Your House 1997, where Kane debuted. It was The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels for all you nostalgic people out there in St. Louis, Missouri, but it's when Kane debuted. It was in the first ever Hell in a Cell matchup. So check that out. Also, all the shows on SJP World Media got WrestleManiacs out, and in Tone and Entertainment. Goodness gracious, this man is killing it. He's doing so much, and I'm trying to be as good as he is. He's allowing me to be on here out of his good graces. I mean, I don't know. I'm not worthy. I need an autograph. I told him, sign something for me. It's going to be worth something. I mean, truly.
Tyler, stop. You're boosting my ego too much. I'm going to explode here.
That's what a good co-host and tag team partner does, man.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'll take it. Mosh Pit says we should double down on the Hogan cartoon with Hogan's music debut album.
Oh my!
Whew, you're really asking for us to. I know there was a lot of, or I know there are some music videos out there with wrestlers and stuff like that. That could be another show down the line too. There's a couple things I want to do with. I'm not going to say them right now, but I do have some more of the creative juices flowing that aren't necessarily things that happen in the squared circle, but that happen outside of the squared circle that involve the wrestler. So I do have some more ideas coming in the future. I don't know if I could watch. Oh my God, you're gonna punish us with this debut album, brother.
Yeah. With this, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a fan, but it gets. I'm gonna have to. I'll probably start laughing though. Even though Hogan can actually play and stuff, but I just don't know that I can, sit through all that.
Yeah, well, for us this week, we return. We got live interviews coming this week. We've got some stuff already set up this week. We are at CCW Bash at the Brew in Hialeah, Florida. We got a couple interviews lined up. I'm excited for that. And next Monday, I will be joined by AC Divine for a live podcast. He comes from North Carolina. He's doing some great stuff on the indie scene. And then the Monday after that, Jaden Steele, a young man who's very, very hungry. He really wants to make this professional wrestling thing happen. I've talked to him personally, in person, through messages. He's hungry. He wants it. And we're going to be hearing from him on Monday, February 12th, here on Toned In Entertainment. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining me here on another episode of the Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast.
You're so welcome, my friend. Always a great time.
Yes, Moshpit. CC Dub. Hialeah Street Fight this Saturday.
There you go.
AJ Francis and Cha-Cha Charlie in a rematch. Ruthie J's defending her title. Ozzy Killmeister has a new donut coming out. We're going to be trying it. I've already said that out there. It's going to be a great time at CCW. Tyler, it's always a great time when you join me here on Toned In Entertainment as well.
Oh, thank you, Tony. And hey, happy for CCW and all the independent wrestling promotions. I'm glad for their success.
Well, everybody rock on. Mosh Pit Messiah rock on as well, too. Cherry Bombs rock on as well, too. And anybody watching this on demand, rock on as well. And what you need to do, if you haven't already, guys, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.